Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the TRPA Operations and Governance Committee. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025, and the time is 8:34. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Aguilar, Mr. Bass,
Here.
Miss Gustafson, here. Miss Hill,
Here.
Miss Lane,
Here.
Mr. Rice.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now go over the remote and in-person meeting rules for the day. For members of the public who are joining us remotely, to observe the meeting, go to trpa.gov. Under the calendar header, clicking on Governing Board Meeting, Hybrid Meeting for May 28th. There you will find a link to the public webinar hosted on Zoom. To address committee members directly with your comments, raise your hand in Zoom by clicking Raise Hand at the bottom of your screen in the appropriate agenda item. With your hand raised, you will be unmuted by TRPA staff and will have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you have used the dial-in numbers to join us by telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and be unmuted. For items that are agendized as information only, we will hear public comment during the general public comment period at the end of the meeting. For items agendized for possible action, we will hear public comment before the committee takes action. To remote committee members, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand in Zoom. You will find the hand icon on the bottom of your screen. Remote members, please do not use the chat box to make any comments or to have sidebar conversations. Please, everyone, remember to mute your mic unless speaking to cut down on background noise. And finally, I would like to ask that all remote members turn on their cameras if they are able. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hand at the appropriate time for public comment, and you will be called on to speak in the front of the room. Committee members who are in person, please raise your hand if you wish to comment and clearly speak into the microphone in front of you. If you are viewing the webinar on a personal computer, please ensure that your microphone and speakers are turned off to prevent audio feedback into the room. The first item on our agenda is to hear public comment for items agendized for possible action. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee on an item agendized for possible action may do so at this time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. If you wish to comment on other matters, including items agendized as information only, you will be redirected to the public interest comment period just prior to adjournment of this meeting. If any of the member of the public wishes to address the committee on any item agendized for possible action, please do so now. Are there any members in the public? Ellie, please. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ellie Waller. This is a response to the mobility funds that will be coming up before your board. The bigger board. I am a commuter now to Lake Tahoe, and getting here for meetings, I plan way in advance now. I have another meeting today in Incline, so I'll be leaving here at noon to be there at 2. So I know you all understand the concerns of the public that commute. How are the greater population of our visitors going to better understand not just our construction zones, but our new pilot programs? I'm going to have a part-time job this summer in Tahoe City. I don't even know where to begin to determine what time I need to be on the road and how to get to my job. So it's just as important to address both the commuters and the tourism base. And I don't know how it gets out there. I think we're not quite as successful as we wanted to be with the reservation system at Spooner. I've experienced watching the employees that are assigned there having to turn people away and how that gets out of control as well. So I don't know what kind of recommendations I can make or your staff can look at to have better, farther, wider information put out there. I'm looking forward to hearing from the committee today. And then again, I understand somebody has asked for the item to be pulled and discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Are there any members of the public in person that would like to address the committee? Gavin,
Good morning.
morning.
Excuse me. Gavin Feiger, Policy Director, League to Say Lake Tahoe. Two items on the agenda, both supportive of, and they're both the mitigation funds. The Conservancy one is great. That's that parcel. The league, we've had about 5 years of advocacy trying to stop that from being developed as a gateway to Van Sickle, and just really excited for this opportunity. And happy to see this on the agenda. So hopefully approve that money so the Conservancy can purchase and permanently protect that, build a bike path, and just make the entrance to Van Sickle permanently more inviting. And then for the mitigation fees for the Emerald Bay pilot, also really appreciate that. I know it's been a lot of work with staff, and thanks to Supervisor and Committee Chair Lane for your leadership on this. Again, 100% supported. The league is in. We're committing $150,000 to this project. The Tahoe Fund is also committing $150,000 to this project. And this amount of money, thanks to TTD for stepping up and being a willing partner and actually excited partner to get these parking barricades up around Bayview, which is the only missing piece of that whole pilot project. So this relatively small amount of money will truly make the pilot project work. And without the parking restrictions that this would fund, it would be much more difficult for us in the Tahoe Fund to put our money towards the transit, that's the shuttle program that's going to replace those parking spaces, allow people to still visit Emerald Bay once those parking spaces are removed. So that it just makes the whole partnership really work. So that's it. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members in person that would like to address the committee? If not, we'll go online, please.
Madam Chair, we have 2 hands raised so far. And Nichols, please go ahead and unmute and address the committee.
Good morning, Ann Nichols, North Tahoe Preservation Alliance. Everybody knows it's such a problem in the whole basin with congestion. And I just hate to see this go ahead without any detail. It's just like another slapdash fix that, so many questions. And I'm sorry if this would delay all this money, but we need to know the answers. The timeline, the feasibility, the planning, the cost, and how it's going to be funded, and how are you going to communicate with the public, and what is what are you doing about spillover, and how are you going to handle the parking on 28 in Nevada and this at the same time? How's the TTD going to do this? Are you using 30-person buses? Are you using micro transit? We can't even keep the micro transit going on the West Shore as it is. I mean, the TART bus on the West Shore as it is, much less the micro transit had to take over for that. And what is the size of these parking lots? I mean, there's just no answers in this. And, the 1 million visitors a year, is that really adequate or accurate, rather? The attached chart that I sent you, it shows, 700 cars at 1 p.m. alone, suggesting that the demand may be significantly higher than this. And then the operational is there a study or a report that outlines the number of buses, routes, and parking spaces? There's just so many questions. This just seems totally inadequate. Maybe you guys all know the answers and just decided not to include them in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols.
Next, we have Nick Spiel. Nick, please unmute to address the committee.
Hello, this is Nick Spiel, and I just wanted to comment briefly in support of the Emerald Bay pilot program this summer. I'm really excited for this, shifting vehicle miles traveled from private vehicles to a new transit solution, making it possible for people to visit Emerald Bay in a more sustainable manner, and easing congestion for people trying to get through the corridor more safely and more efficiently. Thank you, Ms. Lane, for your leadership, bringing so many people together on this. Really looking forward to seeing it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spiel. Are there any other commenters online?
Madam Chair, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. A question to our executive director. This is a new process where we take comments on the agenda before we actually take the items. The public, as always, has raised some good questions. How do you want to see those questions answered with the item or at this time?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA Executive Director. My suggestion is as we go through each item with the staff presentation, we'll do our very best to answer those questions. And then the board can further ask questions of staff at that time.
Okay, great. And I took some notes on some of the questions that were raised by the public, so we will address those as the items come up. So next we'll move to approval of the agenda. Are there any staff changes to the agenda, Mr. Cox?
No changes.
Okay, thank you. I will go ahead and deem the agenda approved as posted. We're now on item number 3, approval of the minutes. There are a draft set of minutes before you on page 19. Does any member of the committee wish to make a change? Anybody in the room? Not seeing anybody, any of my colleagues online? Seeing no hands raised, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. We'll now go to item number 4, which is discussion and possible recommendation for approval of the April financials. This item can be found beginning on page 75, and I'll go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Cox to present this item.
Thank you. Good morning. Chad Cox, TRPA Finance Leader for the record. Jumping to the first page here, just going to go through some highlights. It's budget season, as we all know. In California, we saw the May revise come out on the 14th. TRPA is whole in that revision, including salary BCP, which is a budget change proposal. So what we had requested is part of that May revise. So we continue to see that go through in May, and hopefully it'll stay that way through the final budget. On the Nevada side, the Nevada budget closing is complete for all items except for the DMV funds, which are contingent upon approval of AB Assembly Bill 545. This is a pretty short assembly bill that basically allows the DMV to increase fees for a handful of things, of which TRPA's air quality mitigation or air quality monitoring funds would come from. So provided that gets through the session, we are whole in Nevada. That's currently been through the assembly and with the Senate. It's had its first reading and we've got a few days left. So I don't know. We'll see how that one goes. A couple highlights just in terms of the financials to date. Revenues are at 69% of budget and planning fees continue to be strong. Those are ahead of last year and ahead of the budget. We'll get more into that in a moment. And expenditures are at 62% of the budget and comp is on track and contracts continue to ramp up. So that's the highlights. Any questions on the budget stuff?
Any questions?
Let's,
Any questions of my colleagues? No?
all right, let's jump to revenue. This is a detailed view of our revenue year to date. State and local appropriations have been fully received. Grants were at 43% of the budget. This is up to $6.4 million as we did our our third quarter invoicing in April. It's up $2.3 million versus what we showed you last quarter. So continued progress on the grant invoicing and implementation front. And then planning fees, like I mentioned, they're 20% ahead of last year and 16% higher than the last 3 years if you look at the average. So, we're seeing volume. I know we made a price or a fee increase to help offset our costs back in October, but we're not just seeing that. We're also seeing just increase in count and more of that activity occurring, which is what's causing the strength there. And then finally, on the other revenue, we are on track to meet the other revenue, which is mainly our investment income for the year. Any questions on revenue?
Any questions? Anybody online have any questions? Okay, seeing none.
Okay, from an expense perspective, compensation's right on track. We're 83% of the way through the year at this point, and 82% of the compensation budget. So right on there. Grant implementation and general operating activities are what drive our contracts number. Contracts were up a bit in April, up $1.4 million versus March, and this is as we continue to work through our grant implementation. The other costs, right, which is the other big bucket there, it's on track versus prior years and versus budget. And so in general, expenses are also looking good for the year. We do anticipate to be, when you look at the end of the year, right on no surplus, no deficit. One other thing to note here, and we'll get into this in the cash flow as well. You all have approved about $1.2 million of mitigation projects so far. We've dispersed 1 million of that. We were kind of slow to go. We did some of that initially in the fall, but most of that has been distributed. I know there's a couple more before us here to discuss later, but 1 million of the 1.2 million that's been approved has been dispersed. And then finally on the last slide here, from a cash flow perspective, 10 months into the year, cumulative cash flow is still at $1.3 million, and we will spend that down here over the last fiscal month, which is the last two, May and June. Yeah. Are there any questions? Does that make sense?
It's hard to believe that this year has blown by so
I know.
fast. What's happening?
It's great because I got to sit here for my first time about a year ago, and it's been great to watch the whole cycle. So appreciate going through it, and it's been good.
Good.
It's been a good year so far.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's looking good. Any questions from my colleagues in the room?
Glad he's doing it, not me.
Yeah.
It's the whole
And-
team. It's the whole team. Thanks.
Any of my colleagues online? Okay, I don't see any, so I will entertain a motion at this point to approve the April financials.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Yes,
Wes.
at least today it is.
It is, okay. Thank you, sir. There's a motion. All those in, I guess we need to take a roll call vote. Thank you, Maria.
Mr. Aguilar. Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane.
Yes,
Madam Chair, that motion passes.
thank you. That'll take us to item number 5, which I will recuse myself for. I have a perceived conflict of interest in that I have a family member that is an investor in this property. So I will recuse myself and I will ask Mr. Rice to take over for this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Devin Middlebrook to present the item. Staff will then turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. It's Tracy Campbell. I'm going to present this one and then Devin will do the next one.
Okay.
Okay. So good morning, members of the committee. For the record, Tracy Campbell with the EIP department here at TRPA with this request on behalf of the California Tahoe Conservancy for $1,117,000 in excess coverage mitigation funds for land bank acquisition. So as part of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with TRPA, both the land banks, that's the California Conservancy and Nevada Division of State Lands, receive excess coverage mitigation funds that are paid by project applicants to TRPA for the continued use of grandfathered coverage on their properties. The land banks can then use those funds to acquire and retire potential coverage or to restore existing coverage in sensitive areas. So for this request, the funds will be used to support the acquisition of a 2.6 acre parcel at 3828 Montreal Road, and includes just over 1 acre of environmentally sensitive land and 1.5 acres of developable land. That which can be developed land contains a segment of the entrance road and the shared use trail that provides access to Van Sickle Park. As part of this transaction, the Conservancy will also acquire and permanently retire 10,000 square feet of Class 1B hard land coverage on an adjacent parcel located just southwest, and that's at 3794 Montreal Road. We are joined online by Amy Rutledge from the California Tahoe Conservancy. She's overseeing this transaction, and she can answer any questions you might have. So I will pass that back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, do any members have any questions? Anybody online that has any questions? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. Any further comments from the county committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion and to the order to pass an affirmative vote of a majority of the quorum.
So moved.
All right, Maria, do we need a, we do, okay, please have fun doing it.
Mr. Aguilar. Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson,
Yes.
Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Rice.
Yes,
Okay, and Mr. Interim Chair, the motion passed.
thank you. And with that, we will go back to our regular agenda. Call our chair back in from the outside.
Turn the whole meeting over to you. We'd be done
No,
already.
No.
All right, so that brings us to item number 6, which is discussion and possible recommendation for approval for release of mobility mitigation funds from El Dorado County in the amount of 25,600, City of South Lake Tahoe 15,500, and Placer County $14,693.39. But whose county? So this would be to the Tahoe Transportation District for implementation of the 2025 Emerald Bay Shuttle and Parking Management Pilot Project. And I would like to, at this time, turn this over to Ms. Campbell. And I notice we have Mr. Middlebrook here as well. You switched, okay. So glad to see you, Mr. Middlebrook. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lane and Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record. Before I dive into the presentation, just want to thank you, Supervisor Lane, for your leadership in bringing this forward and supporting the stakeholders who have been meeting for more than a year on this project. And really on this slide to kick it off, just a reminder for the committee members, this stems from the State Route 89 Corridor Management Plan, which was endorsed by this board in 2020. This corridor management plan really looks at the entire West Shore from Camp Richardson, Pope Beach, all the way up to the Placer County line at Tahoe, with the goal, many different goals for recreation access, safety, reducing congestion, ultimately wanting to get more cars off the road and have sustainable recreation infrastructure in place. Since its adoption in 2020, we're really, again, moving towards that top picture on the right of a great recreation experience. And the bottom picture on the right-hand side of that slide is the new intersection improvement at Baldwin Beach that the Forest Service installed a couple of summers ago, and really just wanted to include that as a highlight that there are many implementation actions that have happened in the 89 corridor plan to date. At Camp Richardson, there's a new vendor who, is part of their concessionaire contract with the Forest Service, will be required to move the ice cream shop land use to the other side of the highway. I know that's a big sticking point for congestion. Construction of Baldwin Beach and Jameson Beach Road bike paths, Bayview parking lot conversion. So a lot of work going on in the corridor, but this project before you today really tackles the biggest issue on the West Shore, which is the very popular Emerald Bay. Next slide.
And Mr. Middlebrook, if I might say here, you were very kind in thanking me for my leadership, but really this has been a team effort. About 15 different agencies have been meeting, as you stated, for almost a year and a half now. including Caltrans, which is the biggest. They own this stretch that we're talking about. And they haven't always been first to the table when there's an issue like we're having at Emerald Bay. They typically will wait for, unfortunately, deaths or, major incidents before they will do anything. And in this particular case, that hasn't been the case. The other thing I want to mention is the support that I've received from TRPA, specifically from you, Mr. Middlebrook, from our executive director, from Ms. Carringer. It's been phenomenal, and I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you for helping us at least get to this point, and we'll see if we can answer some of the public's questions, because that is where we've had a little bit of a lag as we're trying to get the money to do the project and get the information out. They're kind of happening at the same time, and it's created a little bit of a lag in information, but I think the public will see that we've really thoroughly gone through this, and we're not just willy-nilly throwing something out on the table. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. For this pilot project, again, really a pilot project is about learning what works, what doesn't work, collecting data. But the goals are to reduce illegal shoulder parking through Emerald Bay. Most of the parking restrictions that we'll be talking about today are areas where there's already no stopping signs, where we all know the classic tale of someone parking right under the no stopping sign, going about recreating their day. California Highway Patrol has great stories about them towing vehicles that are illegally parked, and right as the tow truck leaves, another car pulls in because they think there's an open spot. This will obviously help increase safety along those roadways. Anyone that's driven through Emerald Bay in the summer knows how unsafe it can be. Reduce congestion. I want to hit this point that we heard from the public on commuters. If you don't have roadside shoulder parking, as much of that chaos at Emerald Bay, it should support commuters. Nothing about this pilot project prevents people from driving through the corridor, whether they're commuting or just going on a drive around the lake. We want to protect the natural and cultural resources of the area. Much of the parking taking place is on dirt. That leads to erosion, obviously harms lake clarity and the natural and cultural values of the area. And then obviously we have a transit component, a shuttle component, which we'll speak about. And we really view the parking management and the shuttle as interconnected and supporting one another. Next slide. A quick overview of the pilot project. This will run from July 15th to October 15th. Parking will be parking barriers, additional no stopping signs will be installed in 3 locations: the viaduct on the north side of Emerald Bay, Eagle Falls in the middle, and Inspiration Point at the south side. Those barriers include delineators, or the snow stakes that we all know, K-rails, which are and traffic cones. Overall, about 150 parking spaces will be removed. Again, most of these are already illegal parking, where people are parking either illegally or dangerously. The Forest Service has constructed a new parking lot at the Bayview, the old Bayview campground, which ironically used to be a gas station back in the day. So with that new parking capacity there, moving folks off the highway, you're looking at more of a net 50 removal of parking spaces. Ms. Lane has been working with the Highway Patrol to bring in dedicated enforcement on peak times to make sure folks are following the rules. The education campaign was another comment we heard from the public. The stakeholder group is working on a communications and outreach plan with the local visitors authorities, so the North Tahoe Community Alliance and the Lake Tahoe Visitors Authority, to make sure that folks are getting the message out there. A couple of the tactics they're using, we're going to send some press releases, have a website with information about the shuttle, and we'll also have printed materials and digital materials that will be distributed to all of the lodging partners in the region, so that when folks check in at hotels, that the front desk can provide them information. If someone asks, hey, how do I go to Emerald Bay? They're able to say, hey, guess what? Don't bother driving and trying to fight for parking. Here's a new shuttle program that you could take advantage of. So there will be lots of education and outreach. We're also talking about getting changeable message signs at the entry points to the corridor, so folks have a heads up before they drive to Emerald Bay and then have to turn around if there's no parking. And then monitoring is important. It was brought up in public comment about those spillover effects. So we're definitely aware and concerned about spillover effects, and part of the pilot program is to see where that spillover happens and make sure that we're addressing that. So we're not impacting neighborhoods, other areas, other recreation sites, things like that. Next slide.
And Mr. Middlebrook, could you please comment also on the date range that was selected? It's kind of odd to, I think, the public, if they look at it, to go, why did they pick that?
Yeah, that actually fits nicely with this slide on the road safety audit. So as Ms. Lane mentioned, Caltrans has been at the table and a partner, and they have agreed to conduct a formal road safety audit for the Emerald Bay area. Actually a little bit wider of an area than the pilot project. So going from pretty much all of Emerald Bay, all of the switchbacks included. Caltrans will actually be out in the field on July 3rd doing that road safety audit. So they will see Emerald Bay at probably one of its worst times. And that is really setting ourselves up for permanent infrastructure improvements. Caltrans really needs to see how the current conditions on the ground are. So that's why we decided to really have them come in first with this road safety audit before the pilot is implemented. So that's that shifting of dates. And then the pilot takes place July 15th. So we're able to see and get conditions, current conditions, plus Caltrans will be able to see what the impacts of the pilot program are as they develop long-term infrastructure improvements, which is ultimately what is needed at Emerald Bay. So thank you for the question on timing there. And I think as we get into October, with the operations, there are adaptive management ability if we see that ridership is going down. But for example, Taylor Creek has the kokanee salmon spawning. Maybe we can adjust the program to meet the shifting demand during the season in that corridor. Next slide. As mentioned, the parking management, which I'll get to in a minute, supports shuttle service. So really just want to highlight the shuttle service before we dive into parking. With the parking reductions, again, we're really not looking at, let's add more people. We don't want to add more people to the corridor. We really want to offset what we're reducing in parking. So the proposed shuttle program has a capacity of up to 38,000 round trip rides per year or per the pilot, and that was developed with the goal again of offsetting what we're removing for parking, so we're not impacting access, but we're also not just adding more visitation. Next slide. Again, this will be July 15th to October 15th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. It's technology based, so it's the same company, Mountaineer, that and Downtowner, that operates TART Connect and Lake Link in the South Shore. So it's a company that's familiar with Tahoe. The app-based, web-based stuff is great because you have vehicle tracking, monitoring, data collection, and there will be a cost to the rider for this service to help offset the cost of the program. And that'll be taken on the outbound trip. So a lot of things that we're testing out here, but really excited that this is part of the overall project. Next slide. We will have routes from both North Shore and South Shore. As you can see, the North Shore route here leaves from Sugar Pine State Park. That was selected because there is existing TART connection to Sugar Pine. That's where the TART service boundary ends. So folks could take TART from Tahoe City, Kings Beach down to Sugar Pine and then transfer to this shuttle. There's also a captive audience at Sugar Pine from the campground. And folks day use area there. Maybe they go to Sugar Pine in the morning and then want to go to Emerald Bay in the afternoon. They can leave their car at Sugar Pine and take the shuttle down. Folks from Tahoe and residents could also walk down along the bike path and catch the shuttle. It was brought up in public comment about what size shuttles we're using. So for the North Shore route, there'll be one 14-passenger van operating every day. And then an additional 8-passenger van operating on weekends when we know that there's more demand, and that goes down to Vikings Home. And Monday through Thursday, every 40 minutes, Friday through Sunday, every 20 minutes. Next slide.
Question.
Yep.
You say that goes down to Vikings Home?
Just to the parking lot at the
Okay,
top.
so if you're impaired, like, you got old, that happens. And that is one steep climb up and down. Are there any plans to assist people in making that trek?
Devin Middlebrook for the record. I do not know off the top of my head what services California State Parks has for ADA accessibility down that ramp. I agree it can be a very steep switchback hike down, but happy to follow up and get some more information from State Parks.
Thank you.
For Devin Middlebrook again for the record. From the south, we'll have two routes. The 7-day-a-week route is going from Camp Richardson to Inspiration Point. That will be operated by one 14-passenger van on the weekdays and 8-passenger van on the weekends as an additional. And then on the weekends, we will also have a 14-passenger van running from the transit center at the Y out to Inspiration Point. I think this is one area that we've seen maybe some room for improvement or close monitoring, as this southbound route does only go to Inspiration Point, not all the way to Vikings Home. That was an intentional choice because of turnaround and headways. And there have been some discussions about potential supplemental connections between Inspiration Point and Vikings Home parking lot. But again, pilot project, really just learning and trying to balance different priorities in terms of frequency, turnaround for the shuttles, and where we're going through the corridor. But really, again, for the purpose of this, Camp Richardson, a big captive audience. There is existing parking there. There's the campground, the hotel, the cabins. There's a lot of folks that are staying in the Camp Richardson area that are going to go to Emerald Bay on their visit or as part of their trip there. So there's a big captive audience there. Then obviously with the Y, there's really connections to transit, the existing TTD service routes, bike paths, resident base, hotels, etc. Next slide. This all supports and is supported by our parking management, which is the discussion today for the mitigation fund release. Next slide. As mentioned, there are 3 segments that we're working on parking management. The viaduct on the north side there, Eagle Falls in the middle, and Inspiration Point Bayview on the south. For both the viaduct and Eagle Falls, removal of parking and additional no stopping signs are all being handled by the Caltrans Maintenance Department. Again, that's a combination of no stopping signs. One of the challenges we have is a lot of the pullouts become de facto parking. And we can't necessarily block off every pullout because we still need those for emergency response. If someone's speeding and gets pulled over by a police officer, they need somewhere to safely pull off the highway. If there's an ambulance or fire truck going through the corridor, folks need to be able to get out of the way. So along the viaduct, there are 2 pullouts that are used as, de facto parking. Those will have no stopping signs installed, additional snow stakes throughout that area. Eagle Falls is a little more challenging infrastructure wise, just the way the highway and culverts are designed. But Caltrans is installing some additional signage there and some additional snow stakes. And then really today's request and discussion is around the Inspiration Point Bayview area. Next slide. So on the mountainside, where you can see the blue lines there, that's where Caltrans is going to be installing additional delineators, quote unquote fence post style. So the snow stakes closer together so cars can't parallel park in between them. We've seen most of that area has that already. They've just been taken out over the years by snowplows, just missing from getting hit by vehicles. So reinstalling those. And then on the mountainside where you see the red lines, that's where the Tahoe Transportation District is going to be applying for the encroachment permit to temporarily block off that shoulder parking. An encroachment permit's needed here because the edge of pavement, the pavement extends out of the highway quite a bit of distance. So you can't really install snow stakes in the middle of pavement. You can only do them on the edge of pavement. And again, this really supports the new Bayview campground parking lot conversion on the mountainside as well. Next slide. Just zooming in, you'll see this is a service gate road that the Forest Service has that folks, and you can see in the Google Maps, there's people parked right in front of the gate where there's an existing no stopping sign. So really, again, just making sure that we're blocking off that parking where we don't want people along the highway and shifting them to transit. And then making sure we're also maintaining enough safe biking area for road bikers and bikers through the area. Next slide. Just a little bit more zoomed in on the south side of Bayview and again, just a great illustration. You can see all of those cars parked. There's a couple double parked on the dirt, causing erosion, safety issues. So again, I think these screenshots and grabs from Google Maps really illustrate the challenge that we're trying to solve in this area. Next slide. So now to the Mobility Mitigation Fund release request. Next slide. Overall, the parking management budget was a question from the public as well. So addressing that, the Tahoe Transportation District will be leading this through an encroachment permit. For the parking management, the project cost is $55,793.39, which adds up to the mitigation fund request through the 3 jurisdictions. The Tahoe Transportation District will be contracting with a local contractor for this work. So again, to address the public comment we heard about capacity for TTD, they will be using a third-party contractor who does have the capacity. The main cost is really about the on-call service and on-site monitoring and inspection. As part of Caltrans encroachment permit, you need to make sure someone's available to go replace a cone if it gets knocked over, a barrier gets moved. So really a lot of that cost as part of the project is making sure that it's being safely implemented and none of the parking barriers are going out into the highway and causing travel or safety issues. It includes also the supply of those barriers, installation, and then removal at the end of the pilot. Next slide. So our mobility mitigation fee, as you all recall, was adopted by TRPA in 2021 to reduce vehicle miles traveled. And includes provisions that the funds may be distributed across jurisdictional boundaries to support priorities of projects of regional priority and can be delegated from the local jurisdictions directly to the Tahoe Transportation District, which is what we are requesting today. And I think we all know that Emerald Bay is definitely an area of regional priority. Next slide. So today we are requesting, again, that $55,793 total from El Dorado County, $25,600, City of South Lake Tahoe, $15,500. I will note that that is pending City Council approval, and from Placer County for $14,693.39. The reason for that very specific number is that that is using the interest accrued from the Placer County's Mobility Mitigation Fund, and Placer County staff really wanted to make sure that that was noted, that that was interest accrued, not the primary balance of the mitigation funds. And that Placer County staff also indicated that there may be need for this board, whether this committee or the full board, to have a deeper discussion on use of mobility mitigation funds for regionally significant priority projects across jurisdictional boundaries. This being the first example of a project like this being brought forward for that type of request. But while not agendized for this meeting, this board may want to discuss that in the future and wanted to make sure I was relaying that to you all from Placer County staff. Next slide. So that brings us to our suggested motion, but before a motion is moved, I'll turn it back to Supervisor Lane for any committee questions.
I am so glad that you were here today and able to make that really thorough presentation. We have so many things happening at the same time, but there will be more information going out. This request for the mitigation funds is absolutely necessary, as Mr. Feiger mentioned from the League. The League to Save Lake Tahoe is putting in $150,000, and Tahoe Fund is matching that as well. And they have been partners in this whole process. So those are significant funds that are intended to pay for the transit. We also have a donation from the Sierra Foundation, which is the foundation that supports Vikings Home and the programs that you were talking about. And they have contributed $10,000, which is going to be used to help with the enforcement with the California Highway Patrol. So this is kind of like that last little missing piece where we need to get those, that section that that Mr. Middlebrook was talking about. This is that last little piece. I want to thank Placer County for your partnership throughout this whole thing. You have attended and your staff have attended many of these meetings, and just want to thank you for that, and the city of South Lake Tahoe as well. So with that, I will ask, do any of my colleagues have specific questions that you would like to ask at this time? Ms.
Sure,
Gustafson?
I do. Devin, thank you for relaying our staff's opinion, and thank you, Supervisor Lane, for making all those nice comments. We are a region. Our visitors don't know these boundaries, and we can't solve these problems jurisdiction by jurisdiction. That said, we just want to make sure that it goes both ways when we have other issues. And so I think that was the only point they were trying to make, is until we work out that strategy. Devin, I did have a question. I recently was somewhere, and I'm trying to remember where I was, where I saw a very effective use of the rubber delineators that stick on in a very rapid succession to avoid parking. It seemed like a very inexpensive way to do it. Obviously, people can run over them, but I don't know if that was discussed as a potential for a temporary project.
Thank you for the question, Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record. Yes, that was sort of our original plan, was those stick-on delineators, but that was adjusted to cones and K-rails based on feedback from Caltrans. So Caltrans requested that different type of barrier, but yes, that was our original idea. And I can't speak off the top of my head to all of the intricacies of why Caltrans made that recommendation, but we landed on the final recommended barriers based on mainly Caltrans input, because they need to approve the encroachment permit.
Well, I appreciate that. I drive I-80 a lot. You may know this. And the craziness of, and I would say concern I have for my own safety in some of the narrowing of the roadways on a major interstate freeway with semi-traffic, which we don't have here. And this is just a vent to Caltrans, if you're listening anywhere out there. What they can approve for their projects versus what we can approve for our projects. And this is adding a lot of cost and time, and at least trying rubber delineators at some point may be a much more cost-effective way to do it, because you can remove them, do the snow removal in the winter, and obviously not have as much expense. I'd love to see it. I'm so excited about the project and trying this. I've already seen the publicity getting out, and to our earlier caller, Ann Nichols' concerns, it is going to take a concerted effort of a lot of public information, and you're doing a great job already. Anything you have, I think we can further with our county PIO to get the word out to those visitors and residents. Whether I can do it this year or not, we can do postcard mailings to homeowners as well, to alert them. But I do think the homeowners will know it's the visitors or their guests that might get up in the morning and say, hey, let's go for a drive to Emerald Bay, and not understand. So whatever we can do, however we can assist beyond the cost of this, there's more money. And I think videos, YouTube, Facebook, your generation knows a lot more than mine on how to get the word out these days. But whatever we can do to help and assist in that, we want to do that. I'm thankful that you have been so doggedly persevering through this effort, Supervisor, because we've got to try things. Everybody complains, but making major infrastructure changes is extremely expensive. So trying pilot projects, seeing what works, getting feedback, I think that's the way we're going to address transportation moving forward. So thank you for your efforts.
Oh, you've been a great partner in this, so thank you. Ms. Hill?
Well, I just want to say thank you for your leadership, Madam Chairwoman, and I know how hard it is to get these kind of projects going. So I just admire how hard you've worked, as you've heard around the table from the community. And like Cindy said, we can help as well. So if there is like a package of information and ways to distribute it, like a media package, just get that to me or to the
Okay.
board members, and I'll get it out through all the different ways we can on the North Shore as well. And I'm wondering, I don't know if you would be able to answer this, Mr. Middlebrook, but are cameras allowed in California on roadways?
Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record. Great question. So we've actually been discussing this because the Tahoe Transportation District has their SMART grant from the federal government. And as part of that, they have received a mobile video camera trailer that has all sorts of technology. And we have been talking about placing that trailer in that parking zone area so we can have real-time video feed. There are ongoing conversations with Caltrans about privacy and data, which is a concern and a limit there. For example, the Caltrans traffic cameras that you see that are posted at the basin entry points, those are live feed only. Those don't capture and record video because of privacy concerns. So we're still working through that piece, but it is something we have discussed through TTD, is getting that real-time data that they have through their SMART grant, which I think would be a great addition and monitoring to the pilot program. So we're working through that.
Yeah, it should make it better if we can get some of that, collect some of that data. And I know that those cameras, talking to Jim, have been really helpful in helping with safety issues that have popped up. So anyway, great work. And I'm so excited to support this. And thank you for being a partner. This is what it's all about.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Ms. Gustafson?
I'm sorry, I had one more question, Devin. Have we contacted the private charter boats and things? Because that's another mechanism to get people to see Emerald Bay without even getting on the road. And it would seem like it'd be a good business model for them to provide safe speeds through Emerald Bay. More
miles an hour.
visitors to see the Emerald Bay. And
Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record. Great question. And I know waterborne access to Emerald Bay is something Supervisor Lane has discussed. We've had Ryan, forgetting, blanking on his last name right now, from Fly Tahoe, Metzer, that's working on the Cross Lake Ferry. He's been in some of the stakeholder meetings. I don't think that's something we're going to be able to pull together for this year, but it is something that has been on our radar. One of the challenges as well for waterborne transit is the pier at Emerald Bay at Vikings Home is very old. It's a fixed height pier. So it does have one little adjustable thing, but really ultimately that pier needs to be rebuilt if it's going to support a real effort for waterborne transit, and something that I know state parks would love to get done as part of deferred maintenance at the park.
thank you.
Good question. Any other questions in the room? Okay, let's go online to our colleagues online. Are there any questions, Mr. Bass?
Yeah, no, I just echo the sentiment from all of my other board members. I think this is just a great project, and knowing that it's a pilot, we're gonna learn a lot from it, and I look forward to that. A couple questions, and again, I also want to thank you, Ms. Lane, for your leadership. I just I know this has been a Hercules of an effort to get all these agencies together in the same room. So I'm wondering, did we, I know we've got the transit center stop, a Camp Richardson stop. Kind of what is the parking arrangements as of now? And again, I understand we're in a pilot and we're going to learn some of this, but where will folks park for those two spots?
Devin Middlebrook for the record. Thank you for the question, Mr. Bass. As mentioned during the presentation, the Camp Richardson and Sugar Pine state parks locations, there is a lot of existing parking there, whether you park at Camp Rich, spend some time at Camp Rich, get a drink at the Grove. Sorry, I was about to call it the Beacon. And then make your way to Emerald Bay from there. So there is existing parking at kind of both of those areas, obviously bike path access as well. At the Y, there are no formal parking agreements with, those nearby commercial areas. Not to put this on the record, but we all know that folks do park at the far end of the TJ Maxx parking lot, and that's sort of a de facto park and ride location for folks. But really the key for the Y location and even the Sugar Pine location is really promoting people to bike or use the fixed route transit options to do a transfer, and really promoting people. And part of our messaging at the hotels in South Shore, at the casinos, and really all hotels will be take the bus from the state line to the Y and then hop on the shuttle. So leave your car at the hotel and enjoy Emerald Bay without the hassle. So again, it is something that the group has talked about. We all know there's challenges with parking, and that's some of the spillover effect we're also looking at. But it is a pilot. We'll learn and adjust as we go. But I do appreciate you raising that concern.
Great, thanks. And then the other thing would be just, and again, I know that we're doing a pilot, so this may be what we learn, but just thinking we are probably going to hit days where we're at capacity as far as the shuttles are full for who's able to go out there. Is there any type of thought of looking at reservations or even ticketed, that you buy your ticket for the shuttle before you go? That way, if we do get to full, we can put that information out to the public. And yeah, basically message that Emerald Bay is full for the day.
Devin Middlebrook for the record, TRPA. I don't know, I may be looking at Gavin Feiger in the room. If there was discussions on reservations for the shuttle, maybe I can phone a friend on that question. And then ultimately, if it's full for the day, I think that's part of the point of the pilot and the parking management is we don't want to just keep jamming more people. And if it is full for the day, we can figure out a way to message that and provide folks alternative places to go recreate.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, my other question, Ms. Gustafson asked about the waterborne stuff. So I'd love to see that come in the future. And thank you all for your hard work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. And we do have Mr. Feiger here in the room with us. He is the lead on the contract with regards to transit. And perhaps you could answer the question about the vision for what this might look like down the road and reservations.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Mr. Bass. Gavin Feiger, League to Save Lake Tahoe. We did talk about a reservation system. And for a number of reasons, the three main ones are just rider confusion. If you and drivers trying to find out who has a reservation and who doesn't could really slow it down. Or trying to move these things as quickly as possible. The other one is just connectivity. There's not great cell phone service in Camp Richardson when it's busy, and then at Emerald Bay it can be really bad. So people couldn't make reservations, and you add additional confusion there. So they're going to be first come, first serve. And as Devin's been saying, it's a pilot. We're going to do a lot of learning from this, and in the future, maybe reservation systems are the way to go. As Devin mentioned, changing some routes around a little bit, and incorporating waterborne would definitely be ideal if Fly Tahoe gets off the ground next year. And Lakeside Marina also owns the water taxi that Bob Hassett used to own. So that might run this year, which could help too. If those run, we'll definitely integrate the messaging in. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Feiger. Are there any other questions of the committee members? Ms. Reagan.
Thank you, Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA Executive Director. Just to wrap up and use this as an example of the partnership and the role that TRPA has played in the corridors, both here on the 89 corridor and on 28, of just helping convene with your leadership, Madam Chair, and Tahoe Transportation District, in that we are, bi-state and regional, and the Transportation District has done a great job of stepping up even to fill in gaps like for getting insurance, for the encroachment permit. And then, TRPA isn't running those shuttles. We have philanthropy involved, the League to Save Lake Tahoe, the Tahoe Fund, other funding sources that's under your consideration today, because it really does take everyone to try to make a difference. And then just to reiterate the comments around the pilot nature of this, we are just hoping we can get some measure of improvement, because the current status quo is just not acceptable. And it will probably take us a few tries to learn as we go. And that's the idea behind this.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Reagan, and thank you for TRPA's support. We really wouldn't even be here without TRPA. It was that initial study on SR 89 that was a roadmap and gave us a lot of information and a lot of data. And we will continue to learn. I have received some phone calls from Ms. Rich out at Fallen Leaf. They're concerned about, some unintended consequences out there. And the one thing I want to assure everybody of is that we have stated from the beginning that we can make adjustments to the program as we go throughout this summer. We're not stuck in this particular game plan. So we will we will be as accommodating as possible. If we see that we're causing a problem, we'll make some changes immediately to begin to adjust that. So with all that having been said, and we're running a little bit over, if there's no further questions from the committee, thank you for all your good questions. I'll go ahead and ask for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Gustafson. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Aguilar? Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson?
Yes.
Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Ms. Lane?
Yes,
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
that's exciting. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Teamwork, it's a team, for sure. Okay, let's move on to item number 7, which is our investment briefing from Principal Financial Group. I'd invite them to come forward at this time and join us, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Cox.
Yeah, thank you. Once again, this is an informational item only. I'd like to welcome Bruce Remington and Eric Lee from the Principal Asset Management Group. Hey guys, thanks for traveling down to share an update. We are running a little behind, so try to make it swift and let us know what pages you need us to flip to, and just thanks for being here today. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll start off on page 4. And one little personal thing before we get started is with me is Eric Lee. We've always had a number 2 or second chair investment manager on most of our accounts. And Eric has been the backup on this account in case I get hit by a bus or I'm on vacation or retire or something. I'm actually retiring on July 31st after 52 years of doing this. I'm 74 and I started thinking, I've worked long enough, but I've worked as long as I have because I really enjoy the work and enjoy my clients. And couple of weeks ago, I had to say goodbye and turn an account over to my replacement account I'd had for 29 years. And I've been working on this one since I think about 2007. So I think Chad is the 4th CFO I've worked with. So anyway, and you're in very good hands with Eric, and he will be backed up by a gentleman out of San Diego, Kevin Eichinger, who I believe is on the phone. And so you will have 2 portfolio managers on the account, but Eric will take over as the lead manager. I'll start on page 4. You have a copy of the book and we have it up on the screen as well. I've always heard, to have good relations with people over time, you don't talk about sex, politics, or religion. Unfortunately, in this business, I can avoid 2 of them, but can't avoid politics. I'll try to stay really neutral here because we're obviously in a period of great economic turmoil right now, and it is impacting both the equity and fixed income markets. Not going to spend much time on the econ section here, other than the economy continues to be relatively sound. While GDP numbers were soft in the first quarter, a contraction of 0.3%. Long term, we're in pretty decent shape. Most corporations are in pretty good shape financially, decent cash flow, but we are seeing some volatility. The Federal Reserve right now is kind of between a rock and a hard spot. A lot of political pressure to reduce rates. A slowing economy would indicate a reduction in rates, yet they're also afraid of inflation, particularly some inflation creeping back into the system because of the tariff follies. And if there's anything the market hates, it's predictability or volatility. And with all the tariff action right now, we're getting quite a bit of that. The good news is your portfolio is structured relatively very high quality, shorter maturity. We've weathered all this quite well. I'll turn to page 5. And the only thing I want to talk about is just quarterly and 1-year bond returns. I made 3-year as well. Short-term treasury bills for the quarter returned about 1.02%. 497, which is unusually high on a 3-year basis. on a 1-year basis, 4.23 on a 3-year basis. If you look at the aggregate bond index, which is a broad measure of the domestic investment grade bond universe, 278 for the quarter, 488 for the last year, 0.52 on a 3-year basis. If you go back over 5 years, actually a loss of 0.4% as we went through all the COVID action, yet bills stayed relatively high as the Fed flooded the system with liquidity. And that again has had an impact on the portfolio, positive actually. Turn to page 7, take a quick look at kind of what we're dealing with in terms of where yields are. And you don't have these 2 columns in the book, they've aged out, but for example, the 2-year treasury back on the end of 2019 was yielding 157. We went through the COVID measures where the Fed flooded the system with liquidity. We actually got a yield of 0.12% on 2-year treasury bonds. The same time, 10 years went from 191 to 0.91. You actually got less than 1% a year buying 10-year government paper. That was kind of the environment we've gone through. As the economy has improved, by the end of the year, that 2-year was up to 389, the 10-year was up to 423. As of just the last day, the 2-year now is at 399 and the 10-year is at 451. We have a positively shaped yield curve again, where for most of that period, 22, 23, 24, it was flat to inverted yield curve. Still a little bit tough of an environment. Yield curve right now is where to place securities. Turn to page 9, is cash flow. Just bring this page up because we don't really have money flow in and out of this account. Most of the bills and refunds and that sort of thing go through the LGIP and LAIF funds. This is more permanent or sticky assets. We did make $112,000 during the quarter. We started at 12,951,000. We ended at 13,163. And I ran the portfolio as of last Friday night. We've had quite a bit of turmoil in the bond market. Good news is we were at 13,101,653. So the rise in rates and the volatility in the bond market has really not hurt us bad. If I look back over the 1, 3, 5, and 10-year numbers, you can see gains and losses. Over the last year, we made 658,000. Over the last 3 years, we made 1.3 million. If I go back over the last 10 years, you took about 200,000 out of the account. We offset that with gains of $2.2 million. So we've had good positive returns in spite of a really rocky bond market. So I'm pretty happy with that. Turn to page 13. We'll get right to performance. Performance has been pretty decent. For the quarter ended March 31st, we were up 1.64%, and that is net of trading costs, net of fees, net of our investment management fee, custody, the whole ball of wax. So we had excessive returns of 0.4%, not a whole lot, versus the Barclays 1 to 5 government credit, and now Bloomberg 1 to 5 government credit index, A or better. So we do not buy BBB bonds and certainly do not buy anything non-investment grade. Over the last year, we were up 526 versus the benchmark at 551. So we lagged slightly by 0.25%. On a 3-year basis, 361 versus 305. So we've outperformed by over 0.5%. 5-year, about 0.4%. Trailing by about 12 basis points over the last 10 years. And remember, when I first started working with you, good 10, 12 years ago, we were restricted to rolling treasury bills. 4 CFOs back did not want to take any risks. They just viewed this as like a checkbook. We've got to keep everything liquid. So starting with Rhonda, Rhonda McFarland, we started to buy some corporate securities as a way of picking up some yield. That continued with Chris, Kyler. In the case with Chris and also Chad, we talked back and forth. How much money do you have in the LGIP and the LAIF funds? And how much do we have in here so that I can retain and maintain our maximum exposure to corporate bonds? Because we do have a limit there. But it gives us a way to pick up some yield. And for April, obviously May's not over yet, but for April, we were up 0.83 gross, 0.77 net. The benchmark was up 0.77. So for the month of April, we just basically stayed even with the market. On a 3-year basis, though, we're up 418 gross, 392 net. The benchmark's up only 348. So on a net basis, I'm 44 basis points ahead of the benchmark over the last 3 years. So we're doing our job. Turn to page 17. I want to run through what the portfolio looks like. I think this is probably the most useful part of the discussion. Performance is good. We don't need to go through a long apology discussion, thank God. Where's the portfolio structured right now? Our option adjusted yield to worst. And worst doesn't mean default. Worst means if some bonds that are callable are called and you get less of a return. So kind of a worst case scenario, we're yielding 4.15%. The benchmark's yielding 4.03. Our spread's pretty positive at 11 bips. Adjusted duration is 2.05. We're a little short relative to the benchmark. And frankly, we're getting better yields at the very short end of the curve, and that makes sense. Credit quality is AA for both the benchmark and the portfolio. Be aware that just last week, Moody's was the last to downgrade Treasury bonds from AAA to AA plus, kind of getting in line with what S&P and Fitch and a few other people have done over the years. Quality distribution on the right-hand side of page 17. We're slightly underweighted in AA's, overweighted in single A corporates, nothing though in BBB. Occasionally we will get a bond downgraded. And if I get a bond downgraded to BBB, but we're still comfortable with the quality and the maturity is short, my job is to call Chris, now call Chad. Here's what we have. Here's why we recommend you hang on to it. Remember a number of years ago, we had and this is a great example of what we can do. We had a Best Buy bond, got downgraded to BBB and then was downgraded to BB, which is in violation. Called up and said, Best Buy came to market 2 months ago and was able to refinance $100 million worth of bonds. We've got a good bond. They're paying their bills. We've got 1 month to go before this bond matures. It'd be really stupid to sell it at a fire sale price. We held it. It paid in full. On the other hand, if I have a bond that we're worried about, and it may still be a good solid BBB, if we're worried about the long-term credit, it gets launched. Now, that takes us to page 18, where we have sector breakdowns, and you can see what's in agency bonds, government-related credit, treasuries, and investment-grade corporates. We're overweighted in corporates, underweighted in treasuries. And the reason for that is we can get some decent yield pickup by using corporate bonds without taking any significant risk, particularly since we have mostly bonds in really in the 2 to 4 year, 2 to 3 year range. You don't have a whole lot of time. You're not stuck with a long-term bond if you get into some sort of distress. Maturity breakdown on page 19 is also interesting to look at. Notice about 28%, 30% of the bonds are under 1 year. The way the index works is it has all the bonds, government credit, rated A or better, that sit between 1 year and 5 years. When a bond gets to 364 days before maturity, it drops out of the index. If I have a perfectly good bond with a good coupon and the credit's fine, there's no reason for me to do a forced sale just to look like the index if I know I'm going to get paid. So we typically hold things through maturity, not always, but through maturity. If we see a really good opportunity, though, to sell a bond and buy something a little bit longer, decent quality, and get a yield pickup, we will do a yield pickup trade. But as you can see, most of the bonds, we're a little bit underweighted relative to the benchmark in terms of the 1 to 5 range, overweighted in 0 to 1, but it's worked. And duration shows up in the right hand, very similar story. That takes us to page 20. We have a list of all of the securities that we own. And I won't go through all of these, obviously, but you get an idea at the top of what we own in terms of corporate bonds. Pretty good names: Advanced Micro Devices, Amazon, Honda, Florida Power and Light, Morgan Stanley. No junky names here. all rated AA or single A. We typically buy smaller pieces, for example, $250,000 par. What I don't want is have 6-8% in a single issuer. Limit that to about 1.5 to 2% just for safety purposes. And then you can see mostly treasuries. What you do not see in here right now are any US agency bonds. For most of my career, I like to buy US agency bonds, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Federal Home Loan Bank, because I usually got about 1/4 to 0.5% of yield pickup because they're not quite as liquid as treasuries, but they're backed by the government. So I figure I'll take an extra 0.5% since I'm going to hold it to maturity anyway. Right now, the spreads are so narrow, 3 to 5 basis points. There's no sense in giving up the liquidity that I get with treasuries to pick up 3 bips. When I can pick up 20, I'll do it. So the summary on the bottom of page 21, average rating is AA. You can see the total value of the portfolio, cash and invested securities. Our option adjusted duration is 2.05 years. Our yield to worst is 4.15. Go to page 22, and this is an example of what we've been doing in the portfolio recently. These are purchases. Page 23 shows sales. One thing, there's nothing in terms of sales on page 23. We have been able to take maturing bonds and buy new bonds to replace those. And you get an idea of what I'm buying right now and what we're getting for coupon and yield. JP Morgan that we bought during the first quarter with a 4.9% coupon maturing in 2029. So we've essentially got a 4.5 year bond there. We bought at 100, an electric delivery bond, Encore, 465, a treasury note yielding 4.25. We bought that at a slight discount, so the yield's more like about 4.35. So you can see we're not getting a whole lot of pickup for corporate bonds. So most of what we bought over the quarter were treasuries. And we're still looking for good corporate stuff. Corporate bonds are pretty solid right now, good fundamentals. But we continue to look at what's the most opportune purchase we can make. How can we keep this safe? And when you look at what the bond market did 2, 3, 4 years ago, when the aggregate bond index actually went negative, we continued to make money in this account. And so I think the safe short to intermediate term approach we've taken in compliance with your policy statement, in compliance with both Nevada and California state law, has served you well. This is a good stable base. You have a lot of things to worry about as a commission. This is one you don't need to worry about. So I've enjoyed working with you for a number of years. I really have loved coming up here. The only bad thing is I saw Cafe Fiore closed. So I was telling Eric, I said, when we get there, you're going to meet the board, but the night before we'll go to this really great restaurant. And I couldn't figure out why they didn't answer the phone. And finally it's like drive by and it's closed. So that's the only really downside I've suffered in all the years I've worked with you. So
Well-
with that, I thank you for your business. Again, Eric, you're in really good hands. Eric and I have worked together for over 25 years. We've been part of the same team. One other little thing I'll throw in is, we originally worked with you as Wells Fargo. And I loved working for Wells Fargo, but they decided that they wanted to exit the retirement and OCIO business back in about 2018, 2019, and they sold us. Took a little while to get transitioned because of COVID. But with Principal being a big insurance company that also specializes in, they're one of what top 5 retirement plan providers, we have a tremendous fixed income research group, much higher, much bigger than we had at Wells. So I'm a lot more comfortable buying corporate bonds because we do our own credit work. We don't wait for Moody's or S&P or somebody to give us the thumbs up, thumbs down. We've got a great credit team in-house. We also can do municipals where they're appropriate, but that has really been something that Eric and I have loved. We take advantage of. We've got much better credit work than we had, but the basic structure is the same. We got a good team, bigger team, but anyway, that's it. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much for this report and congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, it's good.
Talk about going out on a high note. This is a great report, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any of my colleagues have questions? Ms.
Just what are you
Gustafson?
gonna do after retirement?
Well, first thing I'm gonna do is get my knee replaced.
Oh, fun.
But out some golf, some fishing, do things with my wife. I've got a 1.5-year-old grandchild and a second one on the way. And
Good times, good things.
I'm a wine aficionado. I have a 2,000 bottle cellar and they're not going to drink themselves. So I plan to, have a lot of friends over and on my retirement trip after I retire, I'm going to Australia to fish for a week and
Wow.
just enjoy life.
Great. It's inspirational, right, Brooke?
Oh, I look
Wes?
forward to it. My answer would have been sleep.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna sleep.
exactly. No, great report. Appreciate all the service to the agency for
Thank you.
these
You've been a great
decades. Yeah.
client. You're in good hands.
Are there any questions of my colleagues online? Okay, seeing none, then I will bring this back to the committee. This is a information only item, so if there's no additional comments or questions.
No, the
Mr. Cox?
only thing I'd say is thanks, guys, for your support. I did want you all to know as well. Remember, this is where most of our stuff that's in trust, securities and stuff go, which is why we don't have to pull in and out, and we've been able to maintain the balance over that time period. So just some more perspective. But yeah, thanks, team.
And everything's
Appreciate you
really
guys.
liquid. So if you have excess funds in the LAIF and LGIP, we can certainly do them, but they're also really liquid to where if you need money out of here, we can convert it to cash in a couple days.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
Madam
Reagan.
Chair, just to thank you again for your service. It's just been wonderful to have your steady hand over all these years and wish you all the best. Thanks.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 8, which is a briefing on the fiscal year 25-26 annual budget. Mr. Cox.
Great. Sorry, we're a little delayed here in terms of timing, going a little bit long. So thanks. I'll try to keep this short. Chad Cox, TRPA, Finance for the record. So we did a bottoms up for the fiscal year 26 budget. As typical, right? We worked with the operations team, the department managers to build this bottoms up based on the grants that we see coming in. Like any budget, we put in what we would like and what we would ask for, and then we dial it back, kind of tighten the belt a bit to get to what we're showing you today. Let me just walk you through the revenues, the expenses, and then the bottom line. So from a revenue perspective, the general fund revenue is expected to be flat versus the fiscal year 25 budget. There is a slight reduction in state funds based on the way Nevada had a bill that we got salary increases called AB 522. There is no equivalent bill for this session. The executive branch in Nevada is not going to do raises, so we kind of follow what the states do. So from that perspective, we're down a little bit, but remember, we also have that California BCP that I discussed earlier. So as those two come in, they're close to neutral. That will be offset by continued interest income, like Bruce was mentioning. Those rates continue to be higher. So general fund looking flat year on year. Planning fee revenue, we've assumed 3% up for inflation, and then a slight increase in reimbursables based on anticipated project permit monitoring that we do. So that will be a function of those increases that we do in October, but around a 3% inflation for planning. And then, the other bucket there is basically the Science Council. The Southern Nevada monies or SNPLMA is closing out. And so those are down versus last year's budget. Overall grants show a decrease on the page. We may bring this up as we get into June. When you look at the different programs, AIS is down. Specifically, we had the what's it called? And the bill. Right. So the bipartisan infrastructure funding that got frozen, that's opened back up. So we're trying to figure out how much we put into the AIS bucket there. But grants neutralize overall. In terms of expenses, general fund costs are requested to be up around $700,000. That's the difference between the 8.7 in the preliminary fiscal year 26 column versus the 8.0 in fiscal year 25. This is largely driven by anticipated site and facility maintenance expenses. As you know, we were doing the rock wall. You could probably saw it as you came in. There was a little less parking, so we've been working through that project. There's a lot of those things that we need to work through on this facility that we've deferred over the years. So we'd like to put in some maintenance in the fiscal year 26 budget, and that's the main increase for that line item. Planning funds are flat, which is great, right? This shows that we're getting productivity out of our process improvements, and we're effectively going to be able to do, that additional planning fee revenue, which is, the volume's up, not just an increase in price, but that volume's up. We'll be able to do that with the existing staff and existing expenses. So that's good productivity. And then on the other expenses, they are down slightly, but those align with what the Science Council does. So when the funding goes down, we spend less externally. So bottom line, right, we're balancing this thing out with the general fund. This proposal would use $700,000 of the general fund surplus that we put in or generated in fiscal year 24. For those of you that remember, we finished the audit a little later this year. We saw the audited financial statements. We reviewed those with you in January. There was over an $800,000 surplus in fiscal year 2024. So staff recommendation or request is to spend that surplus from fiscal year 24 in fiscal year 26. The drivers of the surplus were investment income from that year, as well as fees were better than we had anticipated. So those two items generated the surplus, and we're not in the business necessarily of trying to build a surplus every year. So the thought was to spend down that surplus in fiscal year 26 on these maintenance items. And I can walk you through those if you have questions. So with that, I will open it up for questions, and also looking for your insights, because we are going to bring this to the full board in June, and wanted to get any questions and things for us to consider as we put that together for our board discussion in a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Are there any questions at this time? Colleagues in the room?
No, I'm just thrilled that we're getting to work on the building and get some maintenance done. I know the longer you defer it, the more it's going to cost and the more problems. So
Totally.
thank
Yeah. I mean,
you
we've got a
for
list of
moving that forward.
things that you've probably experienced in this room being cold, right? The HVAC is a need. There's a lot of things. We can go through the list of items, but we've also got a great facilities manager that's been on board. That's kind of coming up with these ideas and these projects, and they should drive savings too, right? Because we spend a lot of money when things break, and we have an urgent need to fix something. So we're trying to eliminate some of that. So thank you.
Any comments from my colleagues online? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee one last time. Are there any comments or questions? And if not, then we'll move on to our next item, as this was an informational item as well for no action. That brings us to item number 9, upcoming topics. Mr. Cox.
Thanks, Chad. Again, TRPA finance for the record. Just real quick, we'll go through the budget in June with y'all with the work plan. In July, we're not planning an ops committee. Typically, we're kicking off the audit. We don't have final results for the year, so typically we pass on that. So just a heads up there. July through September, we'll be working through the audit process. We are trying to shrink that down. We did do an RFP on the audit last month and have selected Davis Farr as our audit provider. We did have a couple of bids, and that was our best bid. And so we'll be working through the audit through September. We'll go through planning fees again in October to look for your approval for updated planning fees. And then we're trying to pull our November audit or our audit discussion into November. So pull that back in a couple months, so we're not in January again for the audit review. So that's what's up and coming.
Excellent. Okay, are there any questions from my colleagues? Okay, Seeing none, then we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10, which is committee member comments. Do any of the committee members have comments? Ms. Hill?
On our investment contract, how often do we go out for RFP on that?
Or like for using principal?
Yes.
Yeah. I think every 5 years
Okay.
is the plan.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look at the last time we did that.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Good question.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Any further questions from my colleagues? We're on committee member comments. And seeing no hands raised online, we'll go ahead and move to our final matter of business, which is our general public interest comment period. Any member of the public wishing to address the Operations and Governance Committee on any item listed or not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Individuals or groups who have already commented on items listed on the agenda are not permitted to comment on that same topic. The Operations and Governance Committee is prohibited by law from taking immediate action on or discussing issues raised by the public. At this time, public comments must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of the agency. Are there any members of the public that wish to address the committee at this time? Ms. Waller?
Good morning. Thank you. This is kind of an overarching statement about how we're looking at things regionally and the mitigation funds that come from California versus Nevada. In the future, there should be discussions on regional issues, much like the mitigation funds going for this pilot program. There could have been California funds that went to the Kale Street, Complete Streets project if it came across. So just making a recommendation for future, we're trying to look at things regionally from your board, this committee's perspective. And I'm looking forward to maybe seeing bi-state environmental documents as well, as we have a project in the works right now that probably would benefit from having it be bi-state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Are there any other comments by members in the room? Seeing none, then we'll go online, please.
Madam Chair, we have 2 hands raised so far. Ann Nichols, go ahead and unmute to address the committee.
Yeah, Ann Nichols, North Tahoe Preservation Alliance. Although I did already comment on the pilot program, it would be really nice if we could see how many cars a day are going to be saved by this. Because to me, it looks like maybe 300 people are going to be serviced per day. So from North Shore and then from South, but something like that in data would be very helpful because it's only one 14-passenger car every 40 minutes and just working on 8 hours. And then the big thing, all my relatives and friends in Reno, they want to come up to Tahoe for the day and show people Emerald Bay. So it seems to me that signage should be at Tahoe City and at the Y at South Shore, but maybe you already said that, but it was just, there's some holes in this presentation that I'd love to see filled, and it looks like you're not going to add parking lots, you're going to just use what's existing. And when would that all be filled, given the trip count that I saw in that graph? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols.
Next, we have Nick Spiel. Please go ahead and address the committee.
Hello. I just wanted to thank you for the new meeting format with the time certain on the public comments at the beginning. Made it a little bit easier to coordinate with my schedule. So just thanks for that.
Thank you, Mr. Spiel.
Madam Chair, there are no other hands raised for public comment.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and close public comment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So,
All those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned.